Hey guys, I'm Amber Laux from the Laux Family Farm, and in today's video I am going to be showing you how to take your dehydrated sourdough starter and turn it into a bubbly, active, beautiful sourdough starter that you can bake bread with. If you have purchased our dehydrated sourdough starter, either from the farm stand or online, you're going to get two sets of directions. They are the same thing. One's just a larger size to make it easier to read. And then there is a second set inside the package. Inside the package, you will also see a baggie of the dehydrated sourdough starter. Each baggie, there will be at least 2 tablespoons. Now, to reactivate the dehydrated sourdough starter, you only need 1 tablespoon to start. We put 2 in each bag. That way, if things go wrong, you have a backup. Or if life gets unpredictable, it's also shelf stable for a long time. Now, once you get your 1 tablespoon into your container of choice, I prefer to start out with a smaller mason jar and then size up as the days go on. For the first day, you don't need a large jar at all. The next step on day 1 is to get a tablespoon of warm water. So you're gonna go ahead and let that rest for about 5 minutes on the counter. You can go ahead and cover it. You can use a lid, or you can also use a coffee filter and a rubber band. That works great. It keeps dust and bugs and things out, yet it still allows it to breathe. Personally, I always just have a lid on hand and I don't put it all the way down. Now for the water, I do want to mention, you do want it to be either filtered, or if you are like me and you have well water, that's fine as well. You do not want to use city water, as that will kill your sourdough starter. After about 5 minutes, it's now time to add 1 tablespoon of unbleached flour. I prefer to use bread flour. Unbleached all-purpose flour would work as well. However, you do not want to use bleached flour. I'm sure some people make sourdough seem really intimidating and make you feel like everything has to be just precise, but I assure you, I have never found that to be the case. So you're gonna take just about 1 tablespoon of flour. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you are going to mix everything all together. I really love these skinny spatulas, but any utensil will work just fine. And once it is all well mixed together, you are going to go ahead and cover it back up and set it to the side for 24 hours. You'll see me using rubber bands on the jar, and that is so that we can have a baseline. As the days go by and we start to reactivate this dehydrated sourdough starter, we will move the band to the base your flour, water, and sourdough starter is sitting, and you'll be able to see if it rises and falls. After 24 hours on day 2, you are going to add 2 tablespoons of filtered water and 2 tablespoons of your unbleached flour. You'll then stir thoroughly and set it to a side for another 24 hours. On day 3, that's when you will need to have a scale. In a separate clean jar, you're going to take 25 grams of your sourdough starter, and then you will add 50 grams filtered water and 50 grams of your flour. After 4 to 12 hours has gone by, you notice that your sourdough starter has doubled in size. That means it could potentially be ready to bake with. You can see here that I was able to make a beautiful loaf of bread with my recently rehydrated sourdough starter. However, I would suggest waiting a few more days of feeding your sourdough starter that 1:2 ratio. Get 25 grams of your sourdough starter, feed it 50 grams of filtered water and 50 grams of unbleached flour. That way your starter is just more active and sturdy, and you'll have a better chance at a really successful, beautiful loaf of sourdough bread. A few things though, it is important to keep your sourdough starter in a warm space. Now don't leave it somewhere hot where it's going to bake or anything like that. Another fun, helpful tip I have found is that if I know I'm going on vacation or I'm not going to be baking for a week or 2 or even up to a month, I will feed my sourdough starter. I'll wait about 4 to 5 hours. And once I see a good amount of activity, I will actually take my jar and put it directly into the refrigerator. It kind of helps freeze it in time, and that way when you are ready to start baking again, you can simply take it out of the fridge a day or 2 beforehand and start feeding your starter, and that just allows you to take a break from baking. A big thank you to all of the customers who have purchased a dehydrated sourdough starter from us. You supporting our family and farm means the world to us. We do share my classic white sourdough recipe with each sourdough starter, and I'm gonna go ahead and share that for you right here so that you can refer back to a video format of the recipe.
So the very first thing I do for our classic white sourdough, I get 325 grams of water and 100 grams of my sourdough starter, and I mix that together. Then I add 300 grams of our unbleached all-purpose flour and 175 grams of bread flour. Once that is mixed really well together, I allow the dough to sit for about an hour's time before I add the 11 grams of sea salt. Once that salt is added into the bread, I begin to work it in and do my first set of stretch and folds. I do a total of 4 sets of stretch and folds, 30 minutes apart. Once I'm finished with that 4th stretch and fold, I cover the bread and I set it to the side and I allow it to rise. The timing of this definitely changes based off the temperature in my house. What I do though is I watch for the bread to roughly double in size. It'll be really jiggly and you'll see that it has risen significantly. At that point, I go ahead and shape my bread and then I put it into a bantam basket and put it in the fridge to sit overnight. The next morning, I preheat my oven to 475 degrees for an hour and I make sure that my cast iron is nice and hot. I get my sourdough bread and I go ahead and I score the bread and I put it into the oven covered and bake for 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, I take the lid off and I put it back in the oven at 465 degrees for another 15 minutes. My fun little trick is I always make sure I leave a cookie sheet underneath the cast iron, and this seems to help keep the bottom of my bread from burning. Once that last 15 minutes is up, I pull the bread out and I allow it to cool for about 30 minutes or as long as I can manage before I cut into it and enjoy my first slice of bread.
I've been using this recipe for 4 years now. I truly do feel like it is such a easy, beginner-friendly recipe. Please make sure you tag me in any pictures or posts you make with your bread that you've made. And also feel free to reach out and email me if you're having any issues with it. I know there is a lot of troubleshooting in the beginning, but if you keep with it, I do believe you'll have success.